إلهي لست للفردوس أهلا ولا أقوى على النار الجحيم.
I want to begin with Surat Al-Kahf of the Quran. And why do I do so? Because it is the only surah of the Quran about which Nabi Muhammad ﷺ has established a link with Dajjal. He said, recite the first 10 ayat of Surat Al-Kahf, and then there are other versions of this hadith, and you will be protected from the fitna of Dajjal. So there's a link between Surat Al-Kahf and Dajjal, as with no other surah of the Quran. Located in Sahih Bukhari, also in Sahih Muslim. And our Prophet said about him, every prophet has warned his people about Dajjal. And the Prophet Nuh alayhi salam warned his people about Dajjal. But I am going to tell you something no one has said before me. Dajjal sees with the left eye. He is blind in the right eye. It looks like a bulging grape, but your Lord is not one eye. Between his eyes, on his forehead, is written the word kafir. And every mu'min, the mu'min is the one who has Islam in his heart. So he is not afraid to proclaim the truth. He doesn't say, I can't do that. My business will collapse. I can't do that. They put my name on a no-fly list. I can't do that. They'll say I'm a terrorist. I can't do that. I won't get a promotion in my job. I can't do that. People will shun me. They will say that I am an extremist. The mu'min is not like that. The mu'min has something called sincerity in his heart. It's not sold in KLCC. No. The mu'min worships Allah with sincerity. And when it is right, he stands up for it, regardless of the price he has to pay. He doesn't sit on the fence. Shall I repeat that? And then will you send that message to your politicians? He does not sit on the fence. When it is right, he stands up for it, regardless of the price he has to pay. And when it is wrong, when it is evil, when it is unjust, like Saudi Arabia's nasty, wicked, bogus war on the innocent people of Yemen with this lie that is a Sunni-Shia conflict. When it is a nasty lie, when it is a wicked lie, when it is unjust, he doesn't sit on the fence. No, he stands up against it. That is He's a mu'min. And you can't find him today. Difficult to find him today. So the Prophet said, when the mu'min looks at Dajjal, at the forehead, he will be able to read kafir written on the forehead of Dajjal between his eyes. Regardless of whether he is katib or ghayru katib, whether he is literate or he is illiterate, he can still read. The implication is that the kafir, the ones sitting on the fence and the rest, they see with only the left eye. They are also blind in the right eye, meaning they have only external sight. They have knowledge which comes to them externally, the stuff that you get at the universities. And they are internally blind, like Dajjal. And so they can't see, they can't read. But the mu'min can read kafir because he has nur in his heart. And as I told you, they don't sell nur in the supermarket. Only Allah can give you nur. Not even the politicians can give you nur. Not even the government can give you nur. Only Allah can give you nur. And so this introduction to Dajjal makes it plain and clear that you cannot penetrate this subject unless you can interpret religious symbolism. Like he saw the sun and the moon and 11 stars making sajda before him. And then 40 years later, he saw his father and his mother and 11 brothers bowing down before him. And then Yusuf alayhi salam said to his father, this is the dream come true, that the sun was a symbol of his father and the moon was a symbol of his mother, and 11 stars symbolized his 11 brothers. And so if you cannot interpret religious symbolism, you cannot explain and understand the subject of Dajjal. And while I have students of mine who are Salafi, yes, the Salafi methodology is defective. So they have to abandon that methodology when they become my students. The Salafi methodology is that whatever is in the Quran and in the Hadith and has not been interpreted by Allah and His Messenger and by the Aslaf can no longer be interpreted by anyone. And that has left the Salafi world blind, unable to understand and recognize the reality of the world today, in which Dajjal is now the mastermind. So those of you, if you follow that methodology, you will not be able to penetrate the subject of Dajjal. I want to begin with Surat Al-Kahf of the Quran. And why do I do so? Because it is the only surah of the Quran about which Nabi Muhammad ﷺ has established a link with Dajjal. He said, recite the first 10 ayat of Surat Al-Kahf And then there are other versions of this hadith. And you will be protected from the fitna of Dajjal. So there's a link between Surat Al-Kahf and Dajjal, as with no other surah of the Quran. The Quraysh did not know how to deal with a man amongst them who said, he is a Nabi. And they sent a delegation to the Jews, the rabbis in the north, Yathrib. And the rabbis said, ask him these 3 questions, which only a prophet can answer. And you have to do some homework. You have to spend a little time with those 3 questions, which I cannot do tonight, if you want to study the subject. The rabbis had knowledge, yes, and they did not disclose that knowledge. Up to this day, they don't disclose it. But on the basis of the knowledge which they had, they said, ask him these 3 questions which only a prophet can answer. Not even the Prime Minister can answer it. Ask him about the ruh, the spirit. Ask him about the great traveler, traveled to the 2 ends of the land. And ask him about the young men and the cave. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down the answers in the Quran. That is how important the subject is. But 2 of the answers are located in Surat Al-Kahf. And the 3rd answer is located in Surat Al-Isra, indicating Allah is saying to you that these 2 surahs are linked with each other. They explain each other. When he answered the first question, he first repeated the question and then answered it. وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ, and they question thee about the ruh. And then he answered. And we don't have the time to spend 15 minutes on that answer now. Which book of mine? Yes, Dajjal, the Quran, and Awwalul Zaman. That book has a chapter on this, the ruh. Then when he answered the second question, he did the same thing. He first repeated the question and then he answered it. وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنْ ذِي الْقَرْنَيْنِ, and they question thee, O Muhammad ﷺ, about this great traveler. And the great traveler is known as Zulqarnain. Zulqarnain meaning not one with 2 horns, no. One who has 2 people, 2 generations, 2 epochs. One in the past and one to come in the future. And we will touch on that inshallah on the second question. The Quran took us to Gog and Magog, Ya'juj and Ma'juj. And Ya'juj and Ma'juj are a major sign of the last day. So the rabbis knew about Gog and Magog. And they were testing him to see whether he knew about Gog and Magog. And Allah stunned them by not only answering their questions about the 2 journeys, but went on to answer them and tell them about the 3rd journey that they didn't ask about. But they wanted to know whether he knew about the 3rd journey. Remember the question? The great traveler who traveled to the 2 ends of the land. Allah knew that they wanted to know about the 3rd journey. That is why he answered And he provided the knowledge that they wanted, the answer, on the third journey. And the third journey led to Gog and Magog, which is a major sign of the last day. Now then, the third question. In answering the third question, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not repeat the question. No. This is not by accident. There is something that he is concealing. He wants to leave the rabbis guessing. So he does not repeat the question. The target of the second question was a major sign of the last day. The target of the third question has to be a major sign of the last day. And the most important one of all is Dajjal. And so it should not be difficult for us to conclude that when the rabbis ask about the young man in the cave, the target of the question was Dajjal. And so when we go to look at the answer and study the answer, that answer delivers to us information that is critically important about Dajjal. It is in that answer that the young man fled from the city because of oppression. And that's how it is today as well. The minute you stand up for the truth, they target you. But they did not sit on the fence. They did not waver. They stood up firmly for the truth, like my brother Kevin Barrett here. They stood up firmly for the truth. And as a consequence, they had to leave, like he would probably have to leave the United States now. And they fled into a cave. And they slept for 300 years. And after 300 years, Allah woke them up. And they started to question each other. How long have we been here? And they said, maybe a day, or a part of a day. And I say to myself, wait a minute, let me scratch my head. Something wrong here. If you have slept for 300 years, when you wake up, you have to be blind not to see that you've been there for a long time. Why? Because your bed will be as long as from Tawfiq to KLCC. Yes. So you'll be able to see. It's a long time. But they said a day or a part of a day, indicating that even though they had spent 300 years, when they woke up they were still the same age. So the 300 years had not been spent in biological time. Okay? The 300 years had not been spent in our world of space and time. Is that clear? Do you all agree with me? Wrong. Wrong. Because the Quran says that the sunlight would enter in the morning and the evening. And the bodies will roll, attracted to the sunlight every morning and every evening. So every single day of those 300 years, the young men were in this world of space and time. So now we have what is known as a paradox. We have the evidence that they were in this world throughout the 300 years. And we also have the evidence that they were in another world for those 300 years where you do not grow old and women don't need cosmetics. No. So how do we solve this problem? This paradox is meant to open the door to understanding of Dajjal. That although he is released into the world, and he's here amongst us in the world, he's not in our world of space and time. No. The Prophet said, alayhi salatu wassalam, when Dajjal is released, he will live on earth for 40 days. One day like a year. One day like a month. One day like a week. وَسَائِرُ أَيَّامِهِ كَأَيَّامِكُمْ. And all this day, all the rest of his days, like your days. The Salafi methodology reaches here roadblock. They cannot proceed. The Salafi methodology cannot deal with this. No. A day like a year, a day like a month, a day like a week, and all his days like your days. Our methodology is one in which we interpret it. And we recognize that Dajjal is going to be, he's here on earth, he's living amongst us. Yeah. And even though he's here amongst us, he's not in our world of space and time. So you can't see him as yet. Can you see the angels? But they're here. Can you see the jinn? But they're here. Therefore, Dajjal is also here, but you cannot see him. He passes through three stages. And the Quran uses the beautiful metaphor of a shadow. A shadow. And Allah says in Surat Al-Mursalat, and here is the first verse of the Quran that we quote. بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. انطلقوا. Let the world now proceed. Let the historical process now proceed. انطلقوا إلى ظل, to a shadow. انطلقوا إلى ظل ذي ثلاث شعب. A shadow which will emerge in three parts. They don't teach this in the school of diplomacy. They don't teach this in the Department of Political Science, the universities. That there is going to be a shadow falling upon the world. And that shadow has to pass through three stages before the shadow will be moved away and Dajjal will appear in person. Salafi methodology doesn't know how to handle this. No? The three stages of that shadow I have explained in my first book entitled Jerusalem in the Quran, which many of you have read already. It is in English, it is also in Bahasa. And in those three stages we said, now listen carefully, within those three stages, he gave to the world Pax Britannica and then Pax Americana, where we are now. And finally there will be a third stage of the shadow. And that we say would be Pax Judaica. In order for the first stage of the shadow to give way to the second stage, two great wars had to be waged. 50, 60 million people had to be killed in the First World War and the Second World War. The Second World War was a mopping up operation for the first. The two wars were connected with each other. And so in order for Pax Judaica to replace Pax Americana, you need a big war. And that is the Malhama. And so yes, you are right that Israel is already ruling the world, but not from in front of the curtain, from behind the curtain, yeah. Okay, Pax is a lie. Pax means peace. But he's a liar, and he oppresses, and it's a river of blood. When the third stage of the shadow has been completed, then the shadow will be lifted, and Dajjal will appear in person. This is Suratul Mursala. And then last night and the night on Sunday, we took you to the hadith, the prophecy of the Prophet ﷺ, in which he was speaking to Mu'az ibn Jabal radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and he gave a timeline of events, which you probably already know now. 5 events. The Jerusalem center stage, which symbolizes Pax Judaica. Medina in ruins, which indicates that this Ummah has no role to play on the stage of the world. No. And then comes the Great War, Khuruj al-Malhama. And then after that comes the conquest of Constantinople, which is our lecture on Saturday. And after that comes the Khuruj of Dajjal. The shadow is now lifted, and Dajjal will now appear in person. And I took 25 minutes with just this. How will I ever finish this topic? When the Prophet ﷺ went on to say that Dajjal will come with 2 things, a river and a fire. But his river will be a fire, and his fire will be the cool waters of a river, indicating that in those long years when the shadow is on the world, things will not be what they appear to be. No. Appearance and reality will be completely opposite to each other. They will tell you with their faces straight, yeah, it was Osama bin Laden and his men hiding in a cave in Afghanistan. They are the ones who bombed the World Trade Center and brought it down. And we know it's a lie. Yeah. And yet there are so many who were fooled. They have eyes and yet they cannot see. And so in Surah Al-Kahf of the Quran, Allah has given the most important passage of all in the whole Quran to warn you about Dajjal. And the warning is delivered most of all to the Jews. The warning is conveyed through Musa alayhi salam, but the warning is actually meant for the followers, the Jews. that he declared that I am indeed the most learned of all men. That's what they say, that they are the elite of mankind. And Allah responded and said, no, you are not. There's one more learned than you are. They don't like to hear that. No. They believe they're the elite of mankind. They believe that they are the chosen people of the Lord God. And heaven is reserved for them. So to be told that there's one more learned than you, it is shocking to them. So Musa alayhi salam says, I want to meet him. The one who is more learned than Musa alayhi salam. And it is Khidr alayhi salam. And the Quran is telling us that the scholar, the guide, the one who can penetrate the reality of the world in Akhir Zaman, the one you should follow is Khidr. You have to look for a Khidr. How do you find him? Look for the footprints. Yes, look for the footprints. That's how you'll find him. So Musa says, I want to meet him. And Allah says, if you want to meet him, you'll have to travel to the place where the two oceans meet. Majma'ul Bahrain. The Salafi methodology will now search to see whether it is Atlantic and Pacific or Indian Ocean and Pacific. But our methodology says no. The two oceans are two oceans of knowledge. But Imam al-Baydawi, he agrees in his tafsir. It is the ocean of knowledge externally acquired and the ocean of knowledge internally received. These two oceans of knowledge have to be harmoniously integrated. And it cannot be integrated without Nur. Without Nur, you remain Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You'll have one foot in that camp and one foot in this camp. You'll have your PhD from some university and you'll have your degree from some Darul Uloom. And when you are here, you have this knowledge, but you there, you have that knowledge. In two different worlds. But when you have Nur, you can integrate the two worlds of knowledge harmoniously. And then you have a Khidr. That's why the world of Islamic scholarship today, and it is something painful for me to have to say it, but I have to make my back strong and say it, despite the pain, that the world of Islamic scholarship have failed, yes, and failed miserably, yes, because they have not gone to this methodology of Khidr alayhi salam. He is the one who can understand the world. He's the most learned of all. And Allah spoke two things about him. Number one, he is the embodiment of kindness. Kindness. You can do what you want. He still remains kind. Yes. And secondly, that knowledge comes to him like a river flowing from above. وَعَلَّمْنَاهُ مِنْ لَدُنَّا عِلْمًا. So his knowledge is not mechanical, like knowledge from a factory. But his knowledge is like the rain, that when it comes and falls, it brings the brown, the dead earth back to life and everything becomes green. That's why he's known as Mr. Green. And then Surat Al-Kahf gives us the amazing encounter between Musa Musa and Khidr, and I don't have the time to teach you. That takes another 15 minutes. And every time there's a test, Musa fails. And Khidr alayhi salam has to explain. And at the end of it, he says, this is the ta'weel. This is the word he used. This is the ta'weel of that which you did not understand, Musa. And so Musa was judging on the basis of external appearance. And all of us today are doing that. Every time he was tested, Musa failed. And the message is being sent to Banu Israel, to the Jews. Be careful. Be warned. You're going to fail as well. And every time he failed, Khidr alayhi salam had to explain to him the inner reality, not the external appearance, the inner reality of the event. And so this passage of the Quran, which unfortunately we don't have the time to analyze, is the mother of all passages of the Quran, in warning us about Dajjal and that the need to study Dajjal. Dajjal has many battlegrounds through which he attacks us. But his last battleground is women. He said the last people to follow Dajjal will be women. And a man would have to return to his home and tie, meaning coercively restrain his wife, sister, daughter, to protect them from being seduced by Dajjal, indicating that in Akhirul Zaman, a feminist revolution is going to emerge. And those who are in that feminist revolution will be so brainwashed that no matter what you say to them, you can't convince them. Your own daughter, and she now becomes a lesbian. Yeah? And it's a shame, a disgrace for the whole family. But no matter what you say to her, nothing works. Yes? And your sister throws away her hijab. And she goes out in the open without any hijab. And the brother flew all the way from Tunisia to come to consult with me, Sheikh, what to do? What to do? My sister had thrown away the hijab, and now she's dressing the way the others are dressing, half naked. This is what the Prophet is talking about. That in Akhirul Zaman there's going to be a feminist revolution. So when you find a Muslim woman, who is truly a woman and does not want to become a man, who wants to fulfill her functions as a woman and does not want to embrace the functions of a man, and who dresses the way a woman should dress modestly, and who wants a husband who is a man, not a boy. You should treasure such a woman. The world of women mostly are doing that today. Blessed is that woman who has eyes and who can see. Blessed is that woman who has eyes and who can see. Because most women today are like that. And this thing called the smartphone is contributing towards the destruction of the thinking capacity. So blessed is that woman who has eyes, who can see. I want to end by advising that the best defense that you have, to protect yourself and protect your wives and protect your children from Dajjal is the Book of Allah. And your first step towards the Book of Allah is to learn to recite it in Arabic. And when you learn to recite it in Arabic, you have to learn to recite it from cover to cover. That's the first step. By the age of 7, your child should already be reciting the Quran fluently. By the age of 7. And by the age of 10, your child should be reciting the Quran cover to cover once a month. If you wait until your child is a teenager, remember, the sea is going to be rough in the teenage years. The sea will be rough in the teenage years. These are tumultuous years for the teenager, boy as well as girl. So do it before they reach 13. Make sure that you recite the Quran from cover to cover in Arabic once a month. This is the beginning of the defense against Dajjal. After this comes the next step to understand what you're reciting. And then after that comes the next step to study the Quran, and my book, Methodology for Study of the Quran, will help you with that. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين آمين.